In the name of the one who is and was and who is to come. Amen.
Amen.
About 5 years ago, my family went on a 16-day vacation to China. My brother and his wife had moved to Shanghai the year before, and they were eager for us to meet their friends, visit their home, and see where they worked. It was a once-in-a-lifetime trip for us. We did a lot of sightseeing and traveling to other cities. We wanted to make the most of our time since it might be our only trip to the other side of the planet. Going on a big trip like this is not a regular occurrence in my family, so the logistics of jet lag and the complexities of international travel were a bit disorienting, to say the least. After a nearly 16-hour flight from Shanghai to Chicago, we missed our connecting flight by mere minutes. Literally, we watched them close the door, the one that they can't open once they've closed it. We were exhausted. So exhausted, we didn't even know if we were hungry. And as luck would have it, there were no more flights to Atlanta that day, so they booked us out on the super early flight that next morning. That meant that we had a little less than 5 hours to take a nap in the airport hotel before we had to be up and moving again. By the time we finally made it home, I was thoroughly mixed up. I had a really hard time wrapping my head around the time and date for at least a week. I couldn't stop looking at my calendar to see what I was supposed to do next. I was so confused from the previous week's experience that I couldn't trust anything that wasn't written down in black and white in my planner. We've all had disorienting experiences that make us question what's really happening in the moment. Sometimes it's an aggravating but relatively benign experience, like my family's disrupted travel plans. Some of you may have exciting surprises, like an unexpected promotion that means a cross-country move, or the shocking news that, congratulations, it's twins. And sometimes an experience can unmoor you from much more serious reasons. Things like the death of a loved one, or a debilitating illness, or an economic hardship. Those experiences are really challenging and can shake us in a way that makes us doubt everything that we know to be true. I would imagine that disoriented is probably a good way to describe how the disciples must have felt in today's gospel. It had already been such a challenging time. First, they experienced the exuberance of riding into Jerusalem, and then the amazement at Jesus' cleansing of the temple and teaching, and then finally, the intimacy of a Passover meal with friends. And then the emotional pendulum really swings the other way. The disciples witness betrayal, torture, and finally the crucifixion of Jesus. At the first of the week, they're all deep in their grief. And when suddenly Mary Magdalene comes running in, she announces the impossible has happened. And then the newly resurrected Jesus just shows up in the middle of a locked room. Talk about emotional whiplash. Of course, the disciples rejoice at this incredible thing that shouldn't be happening, but somehow it is. Unfortunately, Thomas must have had other plans that day because he missed the whole thing. Now, I have to say, I know that poor old doubting Thomas gets a lot of flack for his disbelief, but after the week that they just had, I find him to be the most relatable person in this story. With all of the ups and downs the disciples have experienced, Thomas just needs something more concrete than a completely unbelievable story from his friends. And I can appreciate that. When you're overwhelmed with confusing circumstances, you need something solid to hold on to so that you can get your bearings. And for Thomas, this news does not feel real. It's also important to note that Thomas's doubt was actually twofold. You can see how his disbelief might indicate a lack of faith in Jesus Christ. However, he's also doubting his friends and their belief. His skepticism shows that he doesn't trust them as a reliable source of information. So not only is he denying the goodness of God, but also the goodness that we see in one another as community. When we engage in outreach ministry in our communities, there are a lot of people who can relate to Thomas. For people experiencing poverty and oppression, their need for concrete proof comes from a place of survival. Promises from institutions and social service agencies and politicians are not going to pay the bills, put food on the table, or provide childcare while you work 3 jobs. When your family doesn't have the tools it needs to access education and economic opportunity, then you're going to need some concrete action, not just promises from the people and communities who say that they can help. At the Episcopal Community Foundation for Middle and North Georgia, we fund the ministries that are creating that concrete action. We work with the parishes in our diocese to identify how we can come together and give people the opportunity that they need to move into a place of self-sufficiency and sustainability. Just as Thomas needed something tangible, the communities that our parishes serve need real change as a result of our outreach ministry. ECF's role is to provide grant funding to our parishes and their nonprofit partners, which increases capacity for that ministry. The community here at St. Bart's is very well known for your commitment to social justice and outreach action. We've been honored to partner with y'all twice recently to create a deeper impact in the communities that you serve. Our 2020 grant of nearly $19,000 to Toco Hills Community Alliance provided the appliances for their newly renovated kitchen. And last year, we funded more than $36,000 to New Hope House, which provided them with a new van and carport. And I hear that y'all have recently contributed another $10,000 towards the upkeep of that vehicle and the Indigent Prison Fund. These are prime examples of how ECF's funding, which comes from parishioners like you from across the Diocese of Atlanta, can be utilized for that definitive action in our outreach ministries. For people like Thomas, who have had enough disorienting circumstances for a lifetime, it's not enough to say that you support family visitation for death row inmates. Thomas needs to know that you've got the van to actually help them get to the prison to visit their loved one. And through ECF's partnership with our parishes, we're providing these tangible results across the diocese. The funds that ECF distributes through our grant-making programs have been contributed by Episcopalians over the last 40 years, primarily through legacy gifts. During the Adult Formation Hour, I had the chance to share a bit about how each of you can ensure that St. Bart's and ECF can continue this work through legacy giving. I'd love to meet with each of you about the legacy that you like to leave for your church. Just come and see me after the service, or my board member, Megan, who is also here with me today. Providing the long-term financial sustainability for this outreach work is a part of our collective role as the church. As the gospel states, Christ's miracles didn't end when Thomas recognizes Jesus as his Lord and God. Many other signs were not written about, but they were done in the presence of the disciples, in the presence of Jesus's community. It's now our turn to take our belief and to go out into the world. God sent Christ, and now he sends us As we hold in tension this joy from Eastertide and the disorientation caused by the brokenness of this world, how might you be called to provide stability for those who doubt the support of the community? In what ways is God moving you to embody the promise of Easter? Just as the disciples moved beyond that first week with all of its surprises, it's now our turn to move forward into the world in service to Christ. Amen.